I've lived in Columbus 10 years, and I've never even been to COSI. All right. So I know he just did a poll, but I wanted to do a poll too. And the first poll I have for you tonight is I'm going to gauge your level of experience and comfort with development, just to help me with my talk tonight. So I'm going to name out 3 categories real quick, and then I'll take you through them and we can pull them, okay? So the first category is, I am so good at development that I taught Neo everything he needed to know about the matrix, okay? That's the first category. The second category is going to be, I know my way around JavaScript and jQuery, and I do it for fun. And the last one is going to be, I made an HTML page in college for a course once, all right? So how many people taught Neo what he knows? You guys feel like you're at that level of development prowess? Come on, Brett. Come on. No? Not even you? Okay. That's a good, humble group. How many people here feel like they know the way around JavaScript, jQuery, they've done some front-end stuff, they feel comfortable? Okay, fair number. And then how many of you guys did the HTML page for your homepage in college? Yeah? All right. A lower level? Yeah. PHP developers. No, just kidding. For those, I know this is going on YouTube, so I'm going to get some flack for that. But I used to do PHP too, and then things changed. All right. Well, as you know, those of you that are store owners in Shopify, you don't actually have to have development experience to do that. It's all point and click and ready to go, and that's one of the beautiful things that we love about the platform. And there are so many things that you can do as a store owner right off the bat, right? You can customize your theme, you can choose and install different apps. There's all kinds of little tricks that you can do without any of that fuss of having a developer. But at the same time, there are things that you can only do with a little bit of development help. If you're a Shopify Plus customer, for example, there's the Shopify script editor, which lets you do all kinds of great things for line items and shipping and payment solutions. There's all sorts of front-end and theme customizations you can do through JavaScript and other sorts of stuff. Really, it's a big benefit as a store owner to have access to that kind of talent, because there's basically an unlimited world at your fingertips in terms of the strategies and the design and implementation that you want for your store. And so no matter where your skill set is when it comes to development, whether you feel it's something you can kind of tackle on yourself, on your own or not, there's going to be a benefit to you, the bottom line, as a store owner, if you have the ability to do that. And so who am I to even talk to you about this? Well, my name is Karl. I've been a web developer for going on 20 years now, which is hard to believe. Someone asked me earlier if the internet had even been invented at that point in time, and yes, it had. We were doing, Perl and CGI and that sort of stuff, but it was around. And I love web development, and I have been primarily working in what we call like a database-backed web app. So don't think of like a homepage per se as much as if you're familiar with like a FreshBooks or those kinds of applications that actually have a little bit more meat behind them. That's kind of where my experience. And then recently, the last year or so, I've begun to focus exclusively on working with Shopify store owners for 2 reasons. One, I love people, which is weird as a developer. I mean, you think of your typical developer, that's not something that necessarily comes to mind, but I've got this handicap in my soul where I have to actually talk to people and help them and get a lot out of talking to them and just being around them. And so working with store owners is a great way to scratch that itch, because most of them aren't nameless corporations. They're not these big, huge companies. They're individuals, and they have individual problems and needs, and I love that. The other thing is I like to fix problems for people. It's a real rewarding experience for me. So as opposed to writing the one little piece of dialogue on the widget that's hidden 10 layers inside some behemoth application somewhere that developers working for a large corporation might be doing, I actually get to see the bottom line change. I get to see lives change and stores change for folks. So that's why I do what I do. And today I'm going to press one of these buttons. Not that one. There we go. We're going to talk about 3 things that are going to be important to you if you're looking for development talent. The first one is how to even find a developer, which isn't as hard as you would think. But then the hard part is, how do you actually vet the developer and figure out if they're any good, especially for your store and for working with them. And the last part is, once you've accomplished those steps, how do you actually manage the process with them so that you get a good result? So I have a couple notes here for myself to refer to, because as I approach middle age, it gets harder to remember. I do remember that my 3.5-year-old is expecting another piece of candy when I get home, but I'm not sure I remember all of this, so we'll do the best we can here. The first thing is that finding a developer is really hard. I don't know if you've tried. How many people here have actually tried to hire a developer? Is it easy to find them? No, it's not. They're all hiding somewhere, right? There must be some developer party pad where they're all having pizza and drinking Red Bull or something. I don't know. The reason they're hard to find, as far as I can tell, is because the good developers who know they're good aren't necessarily interested in working anymore. They have the clients that they want, they have the lifestyle they want, and they're doing fine. They're not out there trying to advertise their services. Then you have the set of developers that are good developers, but they don't know they're good, but they fall into the noise of everybody else that thinks they're a developer. Which brings me to my third category of folks, which are sociopaths, people that claim to be developers and will fix your problem for you and do your project, but when you get into it, you find out they're actually lying to you and they want to cause you pain. That's the third category. How many of you guys have worked with those? That's fun, isn't it? Yeah, okay. That's all I'm going to say there. So when I was thinking about how to solve this problem of you can find a developer, there are a couple different spots I thought of. The first one, the best one by far, is referrals. If you can get a referral for a developer, that's like gold, unless your friend hates you who's referring them, which could be the case for some of you. It's reminding me, Chase, I've got a couple referrals for you later too, okay? Some help there. That's great because they've already been vetted. They have a working relationship with someone that you presumably know and trust, and it's a natural win to get that. But for those of you that have kids, as you know I already do as well, referrals are hard because if you have a good developer, it's kind of like having a good babysitter. You don't go out of your way to make that known, right? If you're a parent, it's like having a piece of gold or something. You don't just give it away. So you have to ask, you have to be proactive, you have to hope that people like you enough to be able to share that. So referrals are great. Another spot would be a gig site like Upwork or Fiverr. Some other ones are out there. I can't remember the names. Those are the two I've used. And those are awesome. I mean, yeah, there's developers on there. But then again, we run into the question of, are they any good? Can they do your project? And we'll talk a little bit more about that here. Another way to do it, this is a little more, boots on the ground, take some work on your part, would be online through something like Twitter, or if you're familiar with GitHub, which is an open source repository system. Finding a developer that's working on a project that you're interested in, going to Twitter, searching for keywords like Shopify theme development or some app name in Shopify. And developers, they like to talk about what they're working on. So you might find a network of people that you can kind of tap into to find out, hey, I've got this particular app I need help with. These people are talking about it. I should reach out to them and try. The final place, which is kind of the standard one, would be to go after an agency or a company that does that, right? They're sort of the reputable people that have been around for a while, and they're going to take care of everything for you. And that comes at a cost sometimes. It's maybe a little slower to get up and going, and it can be a little more expensive, but they're great. It's tried and true, and they're going to take care of stuff for you. So, once you find a developer, if you manage to find a developer, how do you actually manage the process? Because I don't know, or how do you actually tell if they're any good? Because like I said before, there's so many people out there claiming to be developers. Which ones are the ones that are going to cause you pain? And there's really one simple trick to figuring it out. Do you think I should tell them, Brent? I should tell them the trick? Okay, I'll tell you guys the trick. I wasn't sure. Here's the trick. Hire them to do a very small project for you, and then see how they do with it. So really, it's just a try and see how they go approach. And this works great. Like, for example, I needed to put together a landing page sequence for a promotion that I'm trying to do for my site. And I can make a landing page. I mean, I do lots of web pages. It's not hard. But I don't have time to do it, and it's not the best use of my time. So I'm going to hire someone to do it. So what did I do? I got on one of these sites because I can't find a good developer anywhere, at least not one I can afford. And so I get to these sites, and I'm trying to think, well, there's like 1 million people here that claim to be web developers. Which one should I choose? Even if I wanted to, who do I work with? And so I just picked one that seemed good, and I gave him a very simple job. Kept the budget low and said, all right, here's what I need, go do it. And he did it, and he came back, and you know what? It didn't stink. It was actually pretty good. And if you're listening to this, I appreciate your work. It was well done. And so now that we have that experience, we can go and move on to next projects, right? And it gives you that chance to really see, how do they communicate? Are they responsive? Do they speak English so that you can actually get across the ideas you want to get across? Because it's not just basic language skills, it's that idea, information getting through to them. How is the source code? This is another big one. If you're doing just small stuff, it may not matter, but source code's a big deal, and the quality of source code differs a lot. You may get the same result from 2 different people in terms of the end result, but underneath it could be drastically different, and that's going to have a huge impact on your business when you go to extend that later on. And I'm happy to talk to you about what to look for in source code if you want to see me afterwards. So get them going on a small project and see how they do. After you find the developer, the last and probably trickiest part is managing that process. It's no secret that most software projects fail. It's just part of the business, the part we like because it keeps us busy. But it fails, and there's reasons that they fail, and there's things that you can do to mitigate that. And so really that's my last point I want to get across tonight is how do you manage that process when you have the developer? And the first thing is you got to learn how to communicate in a way the developer understands. How many of you guys watched Office Space when it was popular? That movie, I'm a people person, I work with people, so engineers don't have to. I've got people skills, why didn't you understand that? That whole thing, like this ability to bridge the gap between me as a shop owner, what I need, and me as a technology person and what I think about and how I reason and act. And so the best way to get your idea across so that a developer like myself will actually do what you are hoping that we'll do is to use something I like to call user stories or use cases. You have to think very elementary about it. So one example of this would be a site that I worked on recently that they wanted, when you loaded a product, to not have any variant selected. And they wanted, if you tried to add it to the cart, that it would give you a warning saying, hey, you don't have a variant selected, you should select one. And this was to keep people from accidentally ordering the wrong size of something because it would default to a small or whatever it was. And so the way I would explain this to myself as a developer would be, okay, I'm a user, I come to the product, when I come to the product, there should be no variant selected. Okay, that's use case number one. Get that to a developer, they know what you're talking about. The second use case would be, as a user, I come to the product, I select a variant, or I don't select a variant, I hit add to cart, I should see a warning. Okay, that's the second use case. Then you add a third use case. As a user, when I go on the product, there's no variant selected. I select a product, I add it to the cart, it gets added to the cart. It's very like having to spell it out one step at a time, but it's what we need to fully understand because when you're a developer, you're thinking, all right, sure, you want me to stop people from adding products to carts that don't have variants selected. Okay, but what happens if they add it to the cart and then remove it from the cart, or all these different things that could depend on different use cases and scenarios and things. There's all sorts of stuff we have to figure out. And so the more clear you can be with what your store needs, the easier it's for us to come back and walk you through the other things to consider. Speaking of other things to consider, one of the things that a good developer will help you do is to figure those things out. And so when you're managing them, realize that it's very important to have that scope of work figured out ahead of time. And you run into this a lot. This is one of the number one reasons that projects fail or that costs go up is you might say, okay, I want that to happen. And then, oh, by the way, I want all the links on those variants to be red. And as a store owner, you're thinking, I mean, what is that, 5 minutes of work for a developer? How hard is it to color something red? I have crayons. I could do it for you right now, right? My son draws all the time. What you don't understand is where that link color is being determined. And as a developer, it could be just hard-coded in HTML, or it could depend on the state of other things that are going on, or it could be some long, drawn-out process that gets to the place of finally calculating that value. And so what seems like a simple change could actually be a huge bit of work for the developer. And that's why if you can be specific and explicit going in about what the scope of the project is going to be, what exactly it is that you want done, that will A, enable the developer to give you a much more accurate estimation of how much it's going to cost and the time involved, and B, prevent them from being in this awkward situation where you want something that seems very simple, and they're telling you it's going to be another $500, and you're like, I just got to send all my users filters to put on their screen that makes things red. It's a lot cheaper to do it that way. Yeah. Don't even get me started about that example. I'm not going to share that story. All right, so those are my big 3 points to get across to you is how to find a developer, how to vet them, and how to manage them. And again, I just want to stress that as a store owner, depending on where you're at in your business, there's no reason you couldn't benefit from having access to development talent. And I encourage you, even if you don't feel you're at a place now where you have a big project or a big need, start this process of trying to figure out how to work with a developer, how to find them, how to identify them, try a small project out, spend $50, it's not that much money, and then begin to establish the skills that you're going to need to care and feed for a developer, because it's going to be the key that unlocks some amazing gains for your store at some point in the future. So thanks for the chance to share tonight, and thanks for the pizza. So it's delicious.